5 seconds. We have complete clearance for launch. We are go. 20. 9. Guidance internal. Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Howdy, neighbors. May the Lord bless you.
We figured out a long time ago that it's much easier to control people when we're all watching the same TV shows, listening to the same radio stations, going to the same movies, looking at the same billboards, eating the same food, and speaking the same language.
I'm talking about my life. I can't seem to get that through to you. I'm not just talking about one person. I'm talking about everybody. I'm talking about form. I'm talking about content. I'm talking about interrelationships. I'm talking about God, the devil, hell, heaven. Do you understand? Finally!
All will obey Santa in this new world order. Oh yeah!
You're gonna have to answer to the Coca-Cola company.
That sounds like a lot of...
There is only one holistic system of systems. One vast and immense interwoven, multinational dominion of dollars. Multinational dominion
which will produce and control hallucinations to the point that it will change human reality.
PsiOp-Radio.
Decoding the psychological warfare machinations within paranormal and parapolitical landscapes. PsiOp-Radio.
Howdy, everybody. This is Miles Lewis.
And Mac White.
And it is another Sunday evening live from Austin, Texas. This is PsiOp-Radio, and we're transmitting from the American Freedom Radio Network. And we've got a very interesting show tonight.
Yeah.
Special guest who seems to be new to the JFK assassination scene and has some quite extraordinary claims about his somewhat intimate connections to various players, alleged participants in the conspiracy to assassinate an American president.
JFK.
And this is Roderick A. McKenzie, and he'll be joining us after this first break. But next week we've also got another guest. We're going to have Supreme Commander James Mosley, who is the editor of one of the oldest running flying saucer magazines in the country, and that is gone under various names over the years, but it's currently called Saucer Smear because, well, he often traffics in rumor, innuendo, and just out and out, scandalous material.
That's going to be a fun show.
Which, it's going to be a fun show, and he's done everything from grave robbing in South and Central America to exposing the truths behind the UFO and Men in Black phenomena. So that's going to be a hoot. But also, I've been hard at work preparing for this upcoming monthly event series going on, put on by the Anomaly Archives nonprofit community group that I'm a member of. And we're going to be doing a monthly Flying Saucer Cinema Series this summer. We're kicking it off a little early, but it's already summer here, as you can feel outside.
It's close enough.
Beginning Memorial Weekend, Saturday night, May 29th, at the South Austin Popular Culture Center, formerly the South Austin Museum of Popular Culture. We're going to be having a monthly showing under the stars of some kind of film that's significant to the UFO, to our culture's experiencing of UFO phenomena. And we're going to start this one off with an incredible, fun film that I love dearly, and that's Quatermass in the Pit, a.k.a.
Oh, that is a good one.
5 million years to Earth.
Yeah.
And Quatermass predates, I believe, even Doctor Who, but he's a very Doctor Who type character. There's all kinds of strange Fortean and ancient astronaut and poltergeist phenomena.
Sounds fun.
But we'll be right back with our guest, Roderick McKenzie, talking about the JFK assassination. Stay tuned.
The heart was afraid of
Welcome aboard, everybody. Welcome back to PsiOp-Radio. This is Smiles Lewis.
And Mac White.
And we have a very special episode for you tonight. We've got a very special guest who is, as I was saying, seems to have recently popped onto the scene and has a very interesting story to tell. And did he know Lee Harvey Oswald? Well, we'll find out a little bit more about that. This is, well, Mac, why don't you introduce our guest?
Roderick McKenzie is a very interesting individual. He's a Korean War veteran. He worked in the carnival and circus for years. He's been an acrobat, a registered nurse, a sign painter, an artist, and he's a multifaceted individual. And he's got this amazing story about the JFK assassination. Rod, are you there?
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome, Roderick.
Okay, great. Glad to be there.
Well, Rod, you've got quite a story to tell, and I guess... what's that?
That's what people tell me.
Yes, it is quite a story. And, I guess the best thing to do is just start at the beginning and tell how you came to know these guys like mob bosses John Roselli and Sam Giancana, and how you ended up in Dallas in 1963. How did that happen?
Okay, it goes back to when I got discharged from the Presidio of San Francisco. I met not Wallace, but the Bill Morgan, and William Alexander Morgan. I met him, and he was on a ship that Barney Gould, the newspaper man, had brought down from Seattle to San Francisco. And they gave me a job on it, because I just got discharged, and I'd hung out at this bar in San Francisco. And I got a job with, I noticed that Morgan had a lot of money, and he was doing burglaries, and I got into that business with him. We got sort of run out of San Francisco because we got some heat. The mob told us we're working for the mob. And they told us, get time to leave. And we just beat the police out of there. Headed down to Los Angeles, San Francisco to Los Angeles. And then Bill Morgan knew people at Goebel's animal farm, and my family had been around, had been in the animal business back in New Hampshire. I was raised at a wild animal farm, not as an animal, as a person. And we met John Rosselli at a party at this named Del J. Graham had going. And Del himself was quite a person. He was mob, and he was had aerial acts, and that was my first taste of flying trapeze business. But we met these people, and Rosselli knew the people up in San Francisco that we knew. And so one thing led to another. We started doing burglaries down there around L.A. and out towards Las Vegas. And got heat again, and it was time to go. We started heading to carnivals and so on and so forth all across the southern United States, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Sea Ranchos, Alamo Expositions, so forth. And Morgan was getting itchy pants. He had been a mercenary and done some hairy things in his life. There's a whole, you can look on the computers, look up William Alexander Morgan, you'll get a whole thing on him. And he wanted to go back to Cuba. He'd been there, so we headed down to Miami. And we'd been up to no good for about 3 or 4 or 5 months, and going all around down in the south and southwest. And we headed to Cuba, went over on the ship, the ferry boat to Cuba. And Rosselli had given us, John Rosselli, had given us an address to go to a fellow named Louis McWillie. So we went and found him at the El Presidente Hotel. And he gave us a job as I was working the service bar, learning to be a service bartender, and Morgan was in the kitchen. He didn't like it. He got involved with these student revolutionaries and went out in the field with them, and he disappeared, but I kept track of him. And I started, I had this identity kit that I had around the carnivals that I made to make phony ID, and I started making IDs and papers for Morgan and his people, Student Revolutionary Council, which was bigger than Castro's army, actually, and on this end of the island, not on the east end of the island, not the western end like Castro was. And they were having some pretty good victories, and I'd go up into the boondocks to see Morgan, and bring them radios and telephones and things like that. They weren't headsets for radios, things like that, and some ammunition, whatever we could get our hands on, food. Razor blades. They wanted razor blades, but they didn't shave. I never figured that one out. And I made them out in the cane fields. And it came to notice the Batista's police, which was a little bit of a hairy situation there because, making ID for those people could get you tortured. And,
yeah.
So, McWillie came to me one day. He said, look, if you're going to make ID and you're pretty good at it, he said, there's a fellow I want you to meet. So it took me to meet this Abe. And Abe said he was with the Defense Intelligence Security Command. No CIA or anything like that. It was DISC. And he said, well, we'll send you to school. Well, I had nothing else to do. What the hell, I go to school. Sent me up to Fort Detrick, Maryland. I went to what they call the Identification and Papers School. Seals and Flaps was the nickname for it. Flaps of envelopes and making seals. And we went to Fort Detrick and spent 3 weeks there learning whatever nefarious things they teach you. I knew most of it anyway. I'd been around print shops and photography and knew all these things. Quite a bit of it anyway.
Yeah.
And you got to realize there weren't a lot of Xerox machines in those days. They were out there, but there weren't many of them. And so I come back to Cuba after I graduated this ultra-secret bunch of people, and I started making ID for Abe. And he sent me out to see Morgan, and with a couple other characters, I go up there and deliver things that they want me to deliver. And they said, I come back, and one day, this is all happening within months, not a lot of time. So we're going to send you up to, about carnivals, and we want to put a safe house on the carnival back end. Said, we're going to send you up to Chicago to meet some people, and they'll put you to work. I go up to Chicago, and Sam Giacana, who I had met before, not on a talking basis, but I'd seen him before. And I ended up sitting in this old brewery with a guy named Gino LaMata, who was one of Sam's guys. And they give me a freezer truck, several old vehicles, and a trailer. And we make it into show equipment, girl show, back-end show, a number of concessions, top-rate concessions, brought in some union carpenters and built them to my specification. And, of course, I didn't really know that much about the carnival games and stuff at that time, but I BS'd my way through it. And they were searching for somebody, so they found somebody, and that was me. So I go out with the shows with this safe house on the back end of carnivals, and we just go on like like any concessionaire, lay down our equipment, pay the privilege, work the show, whatever date it is. Went Tampa, headed to Davenport, Iowa with straight shows. Oh, no, Royal American shows, I'm sorry. And then Royal American was going into Canada, so the people I contacted every couple of days told me that I couldn't go into Canada right yet. They didn't want to take the equipment into Canada. So I said, well, where should I go? I said, well, where do you want to go in the United States? I said, well, New England, I'm familiar with. I'm from up there. So we went up and laid down our stuff on Continental shows, which is a crooked show. You know, it was at that time. Everything worked in those days. Today you can't lay down anything that will make you any money. unless you own the show.
Yeah.
And everything's Sunday school today, what we call Sunday school. And we ran this New England, the hopscotched over to World of Mirth shows. Then when they decided they'd let me go into Canada, and I went up for the Ottawa Fair, the Eastern Exposition there in Ottawa, and then back into Vermont and down to King Reed shows and around New England a little bit over to, it don't matter, a whole bunch of shows. Then we headed out west. I was getting people by now that were being sent to me by this Reverend Bowen and a couple other people, some of the people at that J.M. Wave bunch down in Miami. And we're getting these people, putting them to work on the carnival, teaching them the carnival business. And Gino had become a regular carny by this time. Of course, he was watching over me, too, you know. I'm not supposed to know this, but I was supposed to be the boss, but he really was. And so we head over to Rogers in Wisconsin, Rogers Carnival, and then we go from there over to Art B. Thomas and the Dakotas and play there, and down over to Seabrand at Great Falls, Montana, and down through Utah, down to Phoenix. Yeah, Seabrand, Winters, and Phoenix. So we take equipment, put it mostly in the winter quarters there, and head out with these people I've still got with a couple of concessions and work over in California with a couple of shows there, crafts, and Foley and Burke, and then back down around L.A. again. And got real friendly with Mr. Rosselli there, and I never called him John in those days. I do now, but you know, I always called him Mr. Rosselli. At that time, say it was Mr. Giacana. And I did some burglaries again, and I was running the safe house end of this thing, and these guys were sitting, around L.A. They had just in various rooming houses and doing whatever they did. And I only had 2 clients by then, a girl and she was a hit lady. And we did finish the winter down around California and in Mexico and out of Mexico. We had the girl show going in and out of Mexico, and Gino LaMotta was really getting into the girl show thing. So we're going to these different meetings on, by this time, Castro had come in, and they were having these meetings about how to kill Castro. That was going on. We'd go to those things every now and then. And that was in Louisiana and Texas, down Beaumont, and Nacogdoches, and Shreveport, those areas. And either Gino or myself would go, and one of us would take care of the show stuff. And we were in another Seabrands Carnival, winter quarters a lot. Then we did the same show thing the next year, which would be been about 51, and then same route all the way around again, down to Arizona again, from the Dakotas down to Arizona. And we were getting clients from this Reverend Bourne, whatever, ACC churches. And they had a place down in Mexico, and I guess most of these guys were men. And one lady, she stayed with us a lot. And Martinez was her name. And we were back around Seabrands for that winter, and then comes 1952, come back into the, we were ready to go out. I turn over a vehicle and end up in Pima County Jail, and my ID factory ended up strewn across the desert.
Uh-oh.
And, yeah, all my crap is all over the desert. State trooper comes along, and I'm in a coma, not in a coma, but black that I can't see. So they take me to the hospital, Wilcox, Arizona, and the FBI comes in on it. I get busted. And all this ID, passports, everything else I've got. And I contacted John Rosselli. I had a phone number, and in L.A. at his suite. Well, he didn't get back to me, but all at once I'm let out of jail in the middle of the night at Pima County Jail. And it's 12 o'clock at night. They let people out, expect you to walk back to the city, you know. Uh-huh. No, Pima County Jail's underground way out there.
Oh, boy.
So it doesn't there. So a guy named Ervil LeBaron is waiting for me, picks me up. I didn't know what was going on. He says, "You're coming with me." Now, he was a Mormon with a lot of wives. And I went with him down to a place. We went to a place in, well, first to Douglas. We stayed overnight at Douglas, Arizona. And to Agua Prieta. And then down to Canana.
Rod, we've got a break coming up.
Back on again.
We'll be back in just a few moments. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to PsiOp-Radio. Our guest tonight is Roderick A. McKenzie, and Mr. McKenzie, you were leading us slowly towards Dallas.
Yes, you had just gotten out of jail, and
on that.
yes,
Canana, Mexico is where we're at right now. Cananea, I believe it was, and that was right over the border in Mexico. Ervil LeBaron had this compound there. He's the guy, by the way, that ended up later on. They did a book on him, 4 o'clock murders. And he was a Mormon polygamist that got in a lot of trouble down there. Yeah, that was later in the 60s or 70s, I guess. So anyway, I go across. I stay there for a little while, a week maybe, and it's really great there. I had good food. There was a woman there and everything else. Forget all that. Anyway, the girl takes me. They tell me I'm going to Houston to meet some people, and she takes me all the way across Route 10 into the states. Into the states again, into Route 10, all the way past where you are, and Austin and Houston. to Houston. We stay at the lady and I stay at the Travelers Hotel. I guess it isn't there anymore in Houston. Used to be a Carnival Hotel, crummy joint. And we stay there that night, and I'm supposed to meet some people. And we go over to a gay bar and meet them, and it's Dave Ferry and two Latin guys. And they told me they were going to pick us up in the morning, and I'm going up to Dallas. And don't tell me why or anything else. You never ask questions in those days, these people. I was making money. Why did I care? You know, I had nothing else to do. And so they come the next morning. They come in a Cadillac, and they pick me up. And they take me up in this Cadillac. It wasn't new, but it wasn't very old either. Cadillac up to Dallas. And that's where I met, first I met Mac Wallace. He was, they took me into the Cabana Motel. They put me up there. And then put me at the Egyptian Lounge. I met Mac Wallace. And we had the whole clandestine deal where we both wore the same shirt and all that business, and so that we'd know each other. I didn't know Mac Wallace. I had known Dave Ferry before, and I knew Frederick Rogers, who was in the car too. So they go their way, leave me with Mac Wallace at the motel, and meet Mac Wallace the next day, which I do. And he seems to be an amiable guy, so they nerdy looking with big glasses and square jaw, and very well educated, presents himself well, but he drinks a lot. He's got this flask and gives me some of this wild turkey that he's got, and one shot of that was enough for me. I went back to beer. It was, in those days, I don't know if it still is in Texas, it was set up and you couldn't order a mixed drink in those days.
Oh, yeah, those were the old days. It's changed.
They still have that?
No, not anymore. Dallas is a wide open city now.
It's an improvement. So I get to meet everybody. I meet Wallace takes me over to Jack Ruby's club, the Carousel, and I go over there and meet him upstairs and meet him. And I had some fun there. He introduced me to a lady, sort of. And I meet all these people. I met Tippett there, and I met, finally, we went back. Well, wait a minute. First I had met this Miranda, Jake Miranda. I met him too when that's Mac Wallace had me meet him at the Egyptian Lounge. And he comes in, both of them got suits on, and this weird Hawaiian shirt that he and Wallace and I have. He's under his suit. You knew he was uncomfortable with it. I didn't. That's all I had on. It was warm. And so we go over the Carousel, and I meet Mr. Rubenstein, and I didn't like him right away, even though he was pretty nice to me. Mm-hmm. And he fixed me up with a gal right there and then, so that was not
What
bad.
was there about Jack Ruby you didn't like?
Just the demeanor.
Mm-hmm.
The boisterousness, the demeanor, there was just something hidden underneath him that I call him the penguin. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he reminded me of a penguin in a suit. And big guy, he was he was big and not big, he acted big. Mm-hmm. Later on, I usually took fucking shots at people and things like that, and I didn't like that. He got a couple of signs out of me later on. I painted signs for him, but it was all done through a third party.
And you got to know Tippett pretty well, right?
Well, Tippett I met right there that day, and he was to meet me the next day and take me to the safe house to take over the safe house, which I did up on Holland Avenue in Dallas. Holland Street or Holland Avenue. I guess it was Holland Avenue. And I had also, Ruby had said he could get me whatever I wanted. But what I wanted to go to work, as well as run the safe house, which was as a surgical nurse. And he said, sure, we can fix that up. So they did. They fixed me up with Dr. Sparkman over in Baylor University Hospital, St. Anne's, actually. And then he got me into Baylor University Hospital, Truett Center, in surgery up there. I worked there for all the time I was in Dallas, except to the end of it, where they put me over in Parkland. But that's getting ahead of the story. And so I get the safe house, which is a glorified garage, a coach house, up on Holland Avenue, and it's nice enough. I've got my own little apartment, very small apartment, and shower and bathroom. Plus, the clients have little cubicles and with doors on them. But and there's a little day room there, pool table, and clients start coming in after a couple of weeks. But I'm already working at Baylor by then, and that's what I wish I could find a record that proves I was there at Baylor. I know somebody can get it. I went there later on and tried to find out if I had worked there. They wouldn't help me out at all. So those records are all gone. You know.
Yeah.
So, but if anybody wants to look into this stuff that I was there, they can look that up. You know, I don't have the finances or the resources to do so.
So you managed this safe house, and there were a lot of interesting people that came through there to stay over the next few months.
There was an assortment of Latin people and Corsicans and Frenchmen, and they were all going to or coming from whatever they did. I assume it was hits. In fact, I know a couple of them. I was cleaned up after them. I got notes and papers and things like that. Boy, you like to have those now. Mertz was one of them. He, one that I got to know pretty well. He ordered a lot of wine and stuff, specialty stuff.
Now, this is the Corsican?
Yeah. He was with Corsican course. That. And later on, I got to know a lot of those guys in Indochina later in the 70s, you know. And, he was well known in Marseille and over in Indochina, too.
Now, during this time, weren't you also making false ID to be used in...
Making all kinds of IDs.
Yes.
They gave me back my... somehow, somebody had salvaged, the state troopers had got, somebody had salvaged the whole ID setup. And it had been all over the desert floor. Now, how they did that, I don't know. And they say that there's supposed to be no record, I don't know if there is or isn't, of the FBI busting me in on that deal. I don't know if there is. There should be a record of Pima County when I went there, but because it was under Rod McKenzie, and there should be some kind of record there of that. I don't know. These things, of course, I don't care one way or the other whether anybody proves it or not, because I'm just telling the story. If they don't like it, it's fine. If they like it, it's okay. I didn't do this for notoriety. I ended up getting a little bit. I didn't really, wasn't thinking of it when I did it. It was more of a thing to get it out of my system.
Yeah. Now, we understand that there was a lot of false ID being used during the Kennedy assassination, false Secret Service ID.
I made quite a bit of it. In fact, I know I did.
You made Secret Service ID?
Secret Service, yes. We made that. We made some FBI IDs and cards for all of them as well.
What about Oswald? Did you make one of... he was carrying some ID?
That Heidel thing that Joan wanted to know about, yeah. I made that name rung a bell. Yeah, I did make that. But that was in New Orleans. I made that on Canal Street.
I see.
I had a place up above the Sailors Bar. I don't think that's still around either.
And you knew Oswald in New Orleans, correct?
Yeah, I knew who he was. I was told he was ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence. And and to stay away from him because he was. John Maselli had told me that the guy was on the gay side, and that I didn't want anything to do with him, you know.
Did you see him again in Dallas prior to the assassination?
Yeah, over at Ruby's place one time. That was the only time I ever saw him in Dallas that I know of. But he and Ruby were buddy-buddy. That was, when I saw them there, that was at his Ruby's Club one of the few times I went up there. I was delivering him some signs. And Oswald was there. But he was just one of those regular guys that I used to know was around that bunch, you know. You never asked any questions what somebody did. That wasn't the way you dealt with people. You were what you were, and they were what they were, and you didn't. Everybody was compartmentized. You didn't ask any questions. It was a sure way to get, well, you lose your payroll and end up who knows where.
Yeah.
Yeah, those people, they didn't play games. They whacked people as soon as looked at them.
So you're in Dallas managing this safe house and making these IDs and so forth, and all this time you have no idea that Kennedy is coming to Dallas or that there's even going to be a plot or anything. No.
It came out a couple of days before he came into town. Well, a week maybe. He was coming in. I didn't give it any thought. You know, I was making money. I was playing around with this the gambling thing with this bunch of Texas millionaires going to the Lamar Hotel down in Houston and up working this what they call a stick in our business, working the outside of the table so that the house gets in, you win, it's for the house. I worked that with around. Oh, that was the Lamar Hotel and the Adolphus. Lamar was in Houston. The Adolphus was in Dallas. And we had a suite of rooms, and both of them were, these millionaires came in, and they were, you know, I saw everybody, even the FBI came up there with those people, Hoover and Tolson, and there was a whole bunch, several CIA men that I knew of, guys from that JM Wave, they used to come there. This David Morellis, who nobody ever talks about very much, he was, I'm sure he was involved in this thing as well as anybody else. And I don't know about shooting, you know, I'm talking about in it some way or another. There's so many people that, you don't know what they were doing there that day. I don't know, we're talking about the shooting day. It was just people from all walks of life there. I don't understand why somebody didn't know the thing was going to happen, you know, before it happened. But, we're getting way ahead of it. But
looks like we've got a break. We'll be right back with Rod McKenzie after the break.
Funny and mind-bending news. PsiOp-Radio with Mac White and Smiles Lewis, Sundays at 7 to 9 p.m. Central, only on American Freedom Radio.
All right, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in to this live edition of PsiOp-Radio. Live from Austin, Texas.
So, Rod, you were about to describe when you first found out that you were involved in this plot to kill JFK. What happened on November 22nd? What is your memory of that day?
I got bogged down there a little bit, but yeah, I had made ID for Percy Holt and Rogers and Harrelson. They had airline stuff and stuff like that, flying permits and so on and so forth. From Mineral Wells, Texas, they were going to take off. But I had made all this ID for them and under different names. And that seemed funny because they all had their own, well, two of them were pilots as it was. And I had been cut out of my safe house and sent over to the cabana again to stay there for almost a week. And they had made like a war room out of that safe house. There was maps up there and everything else. I'd only been back once or twice, and I was sort of ushered out. Get back to the motel and just take. Don't bother with anybody, you know. And so I did. I minded my own business and stayed at the cabana. That was a nice place to stay. And I worked at Baylor, and I had the day of the hit. I was told to meet Miranda and Rosselli at the Baylor University cafeteria, which is downstairs, and was at that time. I don't know if it is now or not. And which I did. I had gone to a bookstore, and then I went in about 11 o'clock. I guess I met them down there in the cafeteria, and I had a donut and coffee and stuff. And we talked, pleasantries, asked how Del Graham was. He told me that Del was had asked for me and so on and so forth. And Rosselli was back and forth on the telephone all that time, and right up to, I guess, 12 o'clock, right in there. And maybe 12:30, I don't know. Probably when the hit went down. I don't know what.
12:30, yeah.
What he was doing. But we didn't hear about it for a while. I'm sitting, you know, finally he comes over and he tells me, well, I wouldn't be needed for whatever they were going to use me for. And just to go to work like I normally did at 3 o'clock. I'd get over there at 2:30 and get scrubbed in for whatever case was going on. There was a gigantic operating room, X-shaped with 30 operating rooms or something like that, and there was always a case going. So that's when I heard about the hit. Was up in the OR. Somebody come running in. One of the security guys yelled that Kennedy had been killed. There was no surprise to anybody. It was, you know, and none of us liked Kennedy. None of my people did, because of the Bay of Pigs business, and it was, you know, I didn't think anything of it. Later on, I got a little shivery because I heard about that bullet being put on a stretcher over at Parkland, and figured that might have been what they were going to use me for. Something like that. And, you know, that got a little hairy in your mind.
Yeah.
But, you start thinking you're into the thing, which I obviously was, but I didn't get used. That was it. Just like the guys on the other side of the railroad trestle, Percy Holt and Rogers and Harrelson, they didn't get used. They ended up being those tramps.
Now, this was a shooting team, you're saying, that you found out later was on the other side of the underpass, and they would have shot Kennedy had he managed to make it through Dealey Plaza.
On the way out if he'd gone through that pass,
And so your job at Baylor Hospital, had the motorcade gone to Baylor instead of Parkland, it might have been you who did what had to be done there,
It was like 50-50. If they turned around and come back to Baylor, it was actually shorter than going to Parkland. But I guess they were heading in the direction of Parkland, so they just went that way, under the underpass, and went up Simmons Freeway that way. But, so I just worked that day and left at 11, 11:30 is when I used to get out of there. And I went back to Cabana, and I went to the Egyptian. Well, of course, the Pepsi convention was in at that time. And the night before, I had seen a whole bunch of these people that were, Nixon included, at the Cabana.
Yes, Nixon was in Dallas at the time of the assassination, wasn't he?
He visited the cabana in the room next to mine with Martina Lorenz was there, and Frank Sturgis, and another Latin guy, and they were pretty noisy, and another girl. They were all in that room, and Nixon went in that room for about half an hour, because I was watching out my window. I got a little irritated. They were making so much noise over there, music-wise and so on.
Now, these people that Nixon was meeting with were Cubans, correct?
Frank Sturgis was not Cuban. He was
right.
Italian.
Yes.
Biarelli is
yeah.
his real name.
And Frank Sturgis later became well-known during the Watergate era.
Right, yeah. Yeah, he and Rodriguez, who was also, I guess he's still alive. He was around that area the day before. I don't know if he was around during the thing or not. But those guys were all in town. There were so many people in town. It was amazing. We're talking nasty people.
Well, Rod, we'll be right back. We'll be right back on the other side of the hour after these messages for a short segment and then some more commercials and a very long segment. Stay tuned. This is PsiOp-Radio live from Austin, Texas. Of PsiOp-Radio this fine Sunday evening with our special guest Roderick A. McKenzie talking about his brush with the Kennedy assassination. I'm your host, Smiles Lewis.
And I'm Mac White. And Rod, you were...
I wanted,
Smiles has a question.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember if I just imagined this. Did you say in a previous interview that you had briefly had contact with the Secret Service?
No, I made Secret Service ID.
Okay.
I made quite a bit of that. Yeah, and Percy Holt also, he made the badges for that. All the badges out there in L.A., they had a place, I guess it was CIA, they said.
Mm-hmm.
And John Rosselli and Holt had this badge factory where they had an ID place upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with them a lot.
So you were there at Baylor Hospital in the cafeteria with John Rosselli and your handler.
Jake Miranda.
Jake Miranda. And during the time that Kennedy was killed, and
we didn't do it.
Yeah, you didn't do it. But the reaction of Rosselli was interesting. I thought when you
Yeah, he. We've gone an hour and I haven't said a damn thing hardly. So, I've talked a lot and not got to the crux of the thing. I'm sorry. I'm not a good talker anyway. But. Okay, Rosselli left, and I guess it was after the hit, right after it. And Jake Miranda told me he'd see me tomorrow, and which I did see him the next day. And so let's move along a little bit. I worked that day. 2 days later, I go to Jake's place, and they're closed down for everybody except a few mobsters that used to go in there and eat. And, of course, I rap on the window and he lets me in. And I go in there, and Mac Wallace is in the sauce real heavy in the back room. There was like a catacomb of rooms in the back where they had gambling, all kinds of things going on back there. And the front was a restaurant, a beautiful restaurant, and he served Mexican food and steaks. And there's the circus, what they call the circus bars, was right across from Fair Park over there. And long story short, Mac is getting boisterous and noisy, and that's Wallace's. And so he says, how about getting Wallace out of my hair, get him out of here? And which I did. I went and sat and drank with him, and I suggested we go somewhere else, and Mac was all for it. So we head out, and we hit a couple of places on the way to Fort Worth and Mac's pickup. And we go there, and he's drinking pretty heavy, so I drove the truck. And we get out there to some motel he knew about. And it's a couple of Mexican gals there, and we had some fun there with these girls. And it was, we were just having a wonderful time. And he starts telling me about, like I'm supposed to know about the hit that went down. And he starts telling me about everybody. And I start to, oh, hell, I'm going to write all this down. So I go into the bathroom, and I'm writing whoever he's telling me the names, then where they were on this during the JFK's hit. It was 3 days after, maybe 2-3 days after the thing, and they had already told me I was going to go to Parkland Hospital to work. I was leaving Baylor. And that was all set up. And
another break coming up. We'll be back with a long segment to pick up the rest of the story.
Trust the government. Oh, delay, oh, delay, oh, delay, oh, delay.
This is PsiOp-Radio, and we're having a discussion with our guest tonight, Roderick A. McKenzie, who's talking to us about his involvement in the Dallas underworld and its connections to the JFK assassination. And we will be opening the phone lines. You can give us a call at area code 512-879-3805. That's 512-879-3805.
Okay, Rod, you were in that motel room.
A little bit, huh?
What's that?
I better hurry this up a little bit.
Oh, I think we got plenty of time here. You were in that motel room with Mac Wallace.
He'd been drinking.
Mac Wallace is telling me exactly who did this according to him. Now, this is the part that tickles the palate of all these JFK buffs. And I can't say that it's true, only that it was told to me by a self-confessed killer, and a man that is a killer that I knew about. And I'm not trying to promote this as being the way it was. It's just what was told to me was a confession by Mac Wallace. Okay, I'm going back and forth to the restroom, and there's two Mexican gals that don't speak a word of English that we've been with. Are the only people there. They run this motel, and Mac knew about it. And we're there, and there's nobody to hear it except he and I. And he tells me who the killers were, and he said he ran the teams, and I knew about the sulfur mining company down in Sulphur, Louisiana, and the mercenary camp there, and a language school that they had in that building. And that was CIA run, I understand. But anyway, he said that was the place he trained these people, him and Cliff Carter, the lawyer for Johnson's lawyer. And Cliff Carter was evidently Mac Wallace's boss. And I knew Cliff Carter, too. And they had gone up around Denver there in what they call Red Rocks and done some shooting up there, triangulated fire and so on and so forth. And the only thing I can tell you is, I put all this down on paper, and that's what I put in my book, who they were. I can read it to you if you want.
Yes.
Okay, the command area on the second floor of the Texas State Book Depository was Cliff Carter, Carlos Marcello, which I didn't believe, but I guess that's what he said, Jack Rubenstein, and George Reese.
This was the command area. This was the command area. Were they shooters there on the second floor, or just this was where they were?
I don't know. That's all he said was the command area.
Okay.
Okay. In the alley behind the fence and above the grassy knoll, or what they call that, where the fence was, Clyde Faust, who I knew, and John Ernst I knew, and Jack Grimm, I knew all of them. And Joe P. Dugan, who was a partner with me in a lot of burglaries and stuff. And Joe later verified this. So, Joe may be dead now, I don't know. He went out on a job that I was supposed to go on with him and stealing gold, and with two pawnbrokers from Chicago, and I never heard of him again. I didn't go on the job, obviously. In the alley behind the fence and above the so-called grassy knoll was Clyde Faust, John Ernst, Jack Grimm, Joseph Dugan. Dugan, I don't think anybody's ever mentioned before. Under the bridge, in case the president was not shot, and above the railroad area, and as I said, these people were not used, Charles Harrelson, Percy Chancey Holt, Charles Frederick Rogers, and a man called Dimitri from the ACC who had been in my safe house. On the roof of the county records building, and a lot of people debate this, Harry Weatherford, Roger Craig, at both tops, Richard Scalati, and Michael Victor Mertz, who I also had in my safe house. And on the sixth floor of the Texas Book Depository, called the Nest, Ruth Ann Martinez, who was the hit lady I had on my Carnival safe house, Lee Harvey Oswald, and they said he was sort of woozy, and that he was like he was drunk or under he said under a spell.
Under a spell. Wow.
That's what Mac said.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm Mac Wallace himself, he was there.
Mm-hmm.
Lawrence Loy Factor. And I know Factor was one hell of a shot. I've shot with him. And the Dow Tex building team was supposed to be on top, but they didn't make it. It was Eugene Braden. He's been mentioned a lot, I suppose. Frank Farrelly, Sturgis, he said, and Raphael Quintero, who was a stone killer, rotten son. Oh, never mind. I wasn't a nice guy either, so I can't cast stones. Richard Kane, and Dick Kane told me before they killed him up in Chicago in the 70s, I guess it was. He told me that they had done it, that he'd been where Mac had said. So that's the teams.
Now the name Roger Craig is familiar to Kennedy assassination researchers as a Dallas cop who was a witness to certain things that happened after the assassination. He supposedly saw Oswald running out of the schoolbook depository. Is this the same guy, Roger Craig?
Yeah, he was a cop. Harry Weatherford and him were partners, evidently.
So Mac Wallace said that Roger Craig was on the county records building. He was part of that team.
On the roof of the county records building. And he said that Harry Weatherford actually shot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the people, as far as I know. And I believed Mac. I believed him. And I was scared stiff that he was going to realize he had told me this and knock me off, because, the guy was a killer. And well known for his enforcement and killing. He's a well-educated man, teacher. He wasn't just some scumbum. He was quite a guy. He had, in his own right, he had a lot of things going for him, but he was wacky.
And he's supposed to have performed another of hits for Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah, he killed somebody over his daughter, and then he killed another guy for Johnson, yeah.
Did Mac Wallace say that he fired on Kennedy?
Yeah, he said no. He said somebody else fired from that spot, and that's where they were in that where Oswald was.
Mm-hmm.
and it was one of the others that did it. I don't think he actually said who did it.
Mm-hmm.
But there was there was him, Ruth Martinez. She could have done the shot herself. She was a hit lady, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Ruth Ann Martinez, and she was the lady that was accused. I saw pictures, and that was Ruth Martinez was the gal with the polka dot dress in the later killing of the other Kennedy.
Yes, that's commonly reported that at the Robert Kennedy assassination, there was a woman in a polka dotted dress who had been seen with Sirhan, and you believe that was the same individual.
Martinez, right.
Mm-hmm.
She was a lady that killed with a hat pin in a person's ear while she was making love to them.
Ooh.
Nice gal.
Yikes.
Yeah, she was expert at that.
Whoa. Did Wallace tell you anything else? What happened to Tippett?
Nobody seems to really know that. I liked Tippett. He was a nice guy. I sat and we went shooting together, and I sat and talked with him. We had a few beers together, and he had been with the 17th Airborne.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been with the 508th at that time. Well, he was in before me, but I knew all about the 17th, so it was, we had common grounds to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a paratrooper. Out of the whole bunch, I think he was the straightest shooter I knew, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't very good at shooting when he didn't get Oswald if he was supposed to.
Yeah. Well, it's believed by many that Oswald didn't shoot Tippett, that witnesses say that it looked like someone else there who committed that killing.
Well, that kid was set up all around.
Yeah.
He was... I get even scared about that because I think it could... The same type of guy I was, he'd been except he was with O&I and... really a trained guy, where I only had the Fields and Flaps school. These guys went to all kinds of schools for spying and stuff like that. They went to the farm up in Langley, Virginia, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody goes to Russia and comes out like that and wasn't somebody,
Mm-hmm.
That guy was... and he was around... he was a fair-haired child with up until... his episode in New Orleans with Bannister.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Ferry was always with him, and I used to see these guys in the Casanjama quite a bit in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I first got to know who Oswald was. And I figured hung around with Dave Ferry. He was a little on the gay side.
Mm-hmm.
Ferry wasn't the Nelly fruity guy that they make him out to be.
Mm-hmm.
A pretty serious researcher on cancer, and he was at Charity Hospital a lot, and he was big with Marcello and his people out there.
Mm-hmm.
And Jada, he introduced me to Jada. The first time I met her, I ended up going with her a little bit.
That's the famed stripper that worked at the Carousel Club.
Confronto was her name.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was quite a nice little gal.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. She and Alice Alexander, who was the hostess of Boobies Club. I used to go with both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of fun. You can't talk about those things.
Yeah.
So that's my story. I put it out as a catharsis for myself to get it out of my craw. I've been sitting on this for years.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care one way or the other. If anybody believes it or don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's there for them to take, and if they want it, that's fine. If somebody ever wants to write about it, they can come pick my brain a little bit. But I'm not, I don't care one way or the other.
Well, you were
out of my system.
You were concerned.
Right about the carnival and the circus, the crooked games, and all that stuff that I really could put out a hell of a book on.
Well, yes, that would be a fascinating story because after Dallas, you went on to a number of other things. But before we get there, you went to that job at Parkland Hospital after the assassination.
Yeah.
And what were you supposed to do there in Parkland Hospital?
Oh, at Parkland, I was supposed to watch the doctors there. Surgical nurses, male surgical nurses, were in the same room as the same dressing room as the doctors. So I was supposed to be there and report to Miranda every night for whatever whatever I saw or heard during the daytime.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, because I'm not hearing you very well.
Oh.
So I'd bring back every night whatever information I had, and Miranda would call, I guess it was Vasily or Del Graham, one or the other out in Tarzana, California, and give them whatever I had to report, which wasn't much.
Basically just reporting on the gossip among the doctors there at the hospital.
Yeah, right. That's whatever I heard.
Mm-hmm.
Just keeping my nose to the ground. And the security chief got wind of what I was doing somehow. I don't know. I still don't know how that happened because I was pretty careful.
Mm-hmm.
Kept calling me down, and I just kept working. In those days, they did tubal ligations by court order. And I just kept scrubbed in all the time at Parkland. Finally, he come up and got me. He took me down, and he says, "Look, you've been taking notes on the doctors, and I'm going to give you a chance to leave on your own, or else we're going to have to can you. It'll be on your record, blah, blah, blah." And I talked to Miranda, and we decided it was best I just quit. And then from there, I went, I asked permission, and we went with the carnivals for a little while up to Denver, put my trucks there and stuff, and in the small domes, people at Denver, the mob, we used to use the big barn down by the railroad there. Then I went up to Canada and decided to get out of the United States. There was too many people dropping dead, I know. So I went over to France. Well, England first. I worked a trapeze act, single trapeze act under the name Roderick. Then up to Blackpool, England, over to France. And got on a tour to South Africa. So there's a whole nother story.
Well, that probably saved your life, don't you think, being out of the country?
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. One never knows. As I say, all of this is unverifiable. I used to give my Social Security to wetbacks from all over. I can't say that word anymore. All over the place, and had them, go to work as me in different places.
Uh-huh.
So, I can't verify anything. You either take the story from me or you don't, and I don't care one way or the other.
Well,
I started out with the carnival story and ended up with this thing got run away on the Kennedy thing.
Well, Mac Wallace, you were concerned that he might remember that he had told you all of these things.
And evidently he didn't remember much of anything the next day, so that was good. And I wasn't about to remind him.
No.
And, no, he was a lethal son of, and
he sounds like a pretty scary guy.
He was. He was. I knew a lot of people like that. Frank Sturgis was another one. Dave Morales was probably the scariest man I ever met. And he got the nicest guy, an Indian guy. And he did hits for the hell of it. And Roy Factor was another one. Kill you as soon as look at you. And, they were... We all thought we were patriots at that time. And I was a little light of Genghis Khan at that time myself. So, it wasn't a nice bunch of people.
Yeah.
The guy that goes around doing burglaries and stealing for a living isn't a nice guy either. But I, like I said, I did a 180 from that later on.
Yeah, how do you view things now from this perspective of 47 years later? What are your politics now?
Well, I think that Kennedy needed killing, frankly. was at least being removed, ruined politically one way or the other. What he did to Marcelo was unforgivable. Kidnapped the guy and took him down to the swamps in South America and left him. People don't know about that.
Mm-hmm.
And,
we got a break coming up.
Too, because
Rod, we got a break coming up. Hold that thought, and we'll be right back.
They say he shot the president, but I don't think he did.
Welcome back. This is PsiOp-Radio, and you are listening to us live via the American Freedom Radio Network. I'm Smiles Lewis.
And I'm Mac White. Rod, you were about to tell us about Carlos Marcello.
Yeah, I was just saying that what was known to have happened to him with Robert Kennedy kidnapping him, taking him down to South America, I guess it was, in Mexico or somewhere, in the jungle, and just leaving him there, him and his lawyer. That was a pretty rotten thing, and he had to get back by himself. So the guy was pretty mad at him. But one other thing I was thinking of while you were on the break there was Mac Wallace wasn't a very good shot. As I've shot with him, I went over to Marshall with him a couple of times, and we did some shooting. And, in fact, Tippett was with us, too. And we did some shooting over there in Marshall, which is, I guess it's east of Dallas.
Yes.
Longview or somewhere like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we did some shooting over there. And he was a lousy shot with a rifle. He was pretty good with a pistol, but the rifle, he wasn't a good shot. So anyway, that's just something I wanted to throw in there. I don't think he was the one that shot Kennedy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Roderick, we have a caller. Let's go ahead and take that caller. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, Rod, this is Ron Patton in Olympia, Washington.
Hey, Ron, how you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
You want to shoot me your address? I've lost it.
Okay, yeah, I'll email you it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was just wondering if you happen to be able to get anybody to publish your manuscript.
No, I haven't, and I really haven't looked. I throw it up there. They either can or they can't, and it's open for anybody. I'd let somebody pick my brain. I had that guy Jan Grigger pick my brain for over a year, and we went back to Dallas, and I guess we verified a few things, but Jan had done Circus of the Stars, a nice book, and he was all for it, and then all at once something happened, and he didn't want to do it.
Okay, well, my second question is I was wondering if you'd like to come down to the conspiracy conference with me in Santa Clara next month.
That sounds good, and like I said, I've lost your address and your phone number and everything. Why don't you shoot that to me?
Okay, yeah, I'll email you later on.
Okay.
Okay, nice talking with you.
Okie-dokie.
Thanks a lot, Ron.
Yeah.
Sure.
Rod, you also knew Guy Bannister in New Orleans.
Very well, yeah.
Tell us about him.
Well, you can't consider any of these people friends. I felt that he was using me like everybody else did. And at that time, when I look back of it, I was wondering, like I said, I might have been the Oswald. I was wacky enough and, right-wing enough that I could very well have been the Oswald of that time. The choice for it. Bannister was in and out of Katzenjammer's bar all the time, where we got our payoffs. And in fact, he was the paymaster. And it was, I went to him for him or Delphine Roberts, who was the secretary there, for almost all my needs when I was in Louisiana. Sometimes I was in Louisiana, and that was how I knew Bannister. I was in that detective agency quite a bit myself. And, you know, I didn't know anything about the place next door where Oswald used for his address.
Mm-hmm.
But they were a sneaky bunch. We took weapons to different places. We were in that deal out at Pontchartrain where we were training people, and you know, we had a regular mercenary camp out there, and yes, a lot of bad characters at that time were running around down there, and I was one of them. I don't like to look back in a minute, but I was. I wouldn't have liked me at that time.
Mr. McKenzie, can you tell us a little more about the time you spent at Fort Detrick with that training? Who was it that recruited you to go get taught there?
First name only, man named Abe, and Louis McWillie, who was the mob. They were the ones that sent me up there. They put me on a boat to Miami, gave me a ticket, naturally no flight, ticket on a trailways bus, and I got there and I went in. There was an old chemical building where they'd made nerve gas and who knows what else in that building, and there was 8 of us there that were to be trained, and teachers came from CIA, from the TSS, they call it, Technical Staff Services, and they were the ones that trained us, and everything to do with, from opening letters with, you know, steaming them open to making glues and seals and printers. I had a little press of my own, and that wasn't new to me. Print shop techniques and all sorts of things. I excelled at that. That was really a good week. One girl was among our group, and we were all worried that we might come down with some unheard of disease because of the building.
Right, yeah. Fort Detrick is known for a lot of biological and chemical research.
That's what this place was. They'd done nerve gas in it.
And how long were you there?
3 weeks in all. Not quite 3 weeks.
Was it like a 9 to 5 weekday schedule?
We were confined. We weren't allowed to go out. We had a little day room, and everybody slept in an open bunk area, like an army barracks at that time. Today they got army barracks so much nicer, but it was just army cots and a shower for everybody, all of us, including the girl, and it was, you know, we fixed her so that she had a little privacy, but not much. And I don't know who any of these other people were. Nobody could tell anybody anything. You weren't allowed to. And
so just, at some point, how did you transition there to your next location?
Oh, they gave me a ticket back on the bus. Well, I had a round-trip ticket on the bus to go back to get the ferry to Cuba.
Okay.
I went back there, and
well, it looks like
told me I was going to Chicago.
Okay. Thank you. It looks like we have another caller, and hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, hi, it's Joan from Providence.
Hi, Joan.
Hey, Joan.
Joan.
Hi, Rod. It's nice to hear your story in person. Hi.
How you doing?
How are you, my friend?
What do you want?
Hey, I was. Well, something we talked about in the Paranoia book was about the IRA,
right,
but
Joe
we didn't
Dugan.
talk too much about Joe Dugan. I'm finding it really interesting that the IRA was involved in the Kennedy assassination.
Well, I don't think they were. I'm not even sure they were. You know, I know Joe Dugan was IRA, but I don't think I don't think it was put out by the IRA themselves.
No. And was Joe Dugan on any one of the hit teams?
What? Was
Joe Dugan on one of the hit teams?
He was. What I was told, by Max Wallace, Joe Dugan was, and Joe himself admitted it later on to me when we were on a couple of jobs. Joe was on one of the killing teams. Evidently, where is? Let's see. Let me look in here. Joe Dugan in the alley behind the fence above the so-called grassy knoll. He claims to have been there. Not. Yeah, both of them did. Wallace and Dugan both admitted to that. And also, what's his name? Richard Kane told me that he was where Wallace said he was, in the Caltex building. Yeah. So that's, there was some verification for me. Now, for anybody else, you either got to take it my word or not. Like your partner there said, it's too bad that it can't be proven.
Yeah, I know.
I think a lot of it can be proven if somebody wants to go to the trouble, but...
Yep.
Yeah,
I find it interesting, the other guy, Roger Craig, I just realized today when you were talking about him who he was, because I was watching a video of him. He was, so he was from the sheriff's office. Now, he kept changing his story over the years. He kept adding information over the years, and then I guess he committed suicide, supposedly, when he was 39.
Yeah, that's quite possible. Well, a lot of cops do that anyway.
Well, they don't know if it was real suicide or not, but, I mean, he kept changing his story and adding stuff, and...
It's always questionable, isn't it? I wonder what mine will read like.
What's your...
Well, you can go on record saying that you're not going to commit suicide.
No, I'm not going to commit suicide, and we'll put that right in words right now. I'm
glad to hear it.
Very much alive and going to live as long as I'm let live.
Very good.
Yeah. Only the good die young.
Yeah. Well, I'm all right then. I'm okay then, as you know.
All right.
The Draker boys are all that way.
You're the Draker boys. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. It's been really nice hearing your story in person.
Keep up the emails.
Thanks, Joan.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
That's Joan Dark of Paranoia Magazine. And
well, I've got a lot of detractors, evidently, from what I'm told. Like I say, I don't care one way or the other, but, I expected that when I brought this thing out. When John Grigger told me, he said, there's people go into your story every way that they can, so fine, let them go.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell it the way I tell it. I'm not going to change it. And,
well, I think it would make a great movie, Mr. McKenzie. I think it would really move people, even if it doesn't, it jives with so much of the data out there. Have you read many JFK assassination books?
Not really. I sort of steer away from them because I read that one Appointment in Dallas, and it sort of, I knew who the guy was that he had the picture in there of, and
he's called Saul in that book.
Yeah, he calls him Saul, and he was at my safe house in Dallas. So I knew about him, and it sort of poisoned me by reading that, and then I read a couple others, but not much, because I don't care to poison myself. I know what I know, and what I saw and what I heard, and that's, I don't want to, every time you read something else, you sort of get a different slant on things.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep my original slant, and it's just, as I say, it's for me more than it is for anybody else, unless somebody wants to use it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to give it to somebody, or they can give me a little money if they want.
Rod, we have another caller. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, this is Al Hiddell in Providence, Rhode Island. And Rod, my question to you is, based on your knowledge of the Sicilian Mafia, do you think that the Mafia today still has the capability to assassinate a president? And if not, do you know of other organized crime groups that have kind of gone ahead of the Mafia, the Italian Mafia,
I will put my neck in the noose on that one. Just go downtown where you're at and talk to Raymond Patriarca, young Raymond, and he can tell you very well what he can do.
So do you believe in the story goes that in the 80s, starting in the 80s, the feds really broke up the Italian mafia and took down a lot of the crime
bosses. They didn't break it up as much as it went legitimate. They have more legitimate businesses than they do the crooked businesses. It's just it was a matter of economics with them. They broke themselves up to a great extent. But if they want to do something, they do it. And the Sicilians are okay, but the like I said to you or to Joan, one or the other, I said that the Corsicans are the ones that you don't want to mess with.
Yeah.
They're the bad boys internationally today. Yeah. Well, you're Russians. Your Russians aren't exactly patsies.
All right. Stay tuned for the final segment of PsiOp Radio live from American Freedom Radio. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. This is the last segment of this evening's live PsiOp Radio show. Our guest is Roderick A. McKenzie. And Rod, we have another new caller on the line. Just enough time for one more phone call. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Sure. Hello?
Hey, Matt. Hi, Smile.
Hello there.
What did you say?
Good. How are you guys tonight?
We're doing good. How are you?
Good. Mr. McKenzie, I want to just say it is so blessed of you to come out now and claim some atonement and some humility and do the right thing after those years that you said you're not proud of. I myself have done some things in my life that I'm not proud of, but when we come out and try to make right, it really is honorable. So I very much take my hat off to you.
Well, it's good for me to get the PTSD out of me.
Hey, I have a question, guys. It's pretty hard to imagine a 2-hour discussion of the assassination of John F. Kennedy without hearing the word George Herbert Walker Bush. And I'm wondering, as a resident of Chicago, who is an announced candidate for the United States Senate here for the people of Illinois, I'd like to know if the words Annenberg or Pritzker or Capone or any other names that are family names that are pretty famous here in Chicago ever came up in any of the things that you heard about the Kennedy assassination?
The only thing I ever heard was that Tony Accardo had given some orders for the safe house that I had, and Murray Humphreys was involved in signing me off to have that safe house. That's all I understood with Sam Giancana. That's the only people. As far as politicians go, only Dick Kane, who was worked for the Sheriff's Department later on, or before that, I don't know which. He was the only one that I knew that was politically aspiring. Of course, everybody was into politics. But,
another idea, Mr. McKenzie, is that many, many tens of thousands of people and hundreds of thousands of people have your back because those make it look like an accident. Those kinds of suicides are getting harder and harder for them to pull off. I also am never going to commit suicide, and it really is beautiful that all the truthers out there are, with the help of American Freedom Radio and these amazing men that you're on the phone with today, Miles, Miles and Mac.
But I thank you anyway. But if they want me, they get me. They would have done it long ago if they'd wanted me.
All right.
Good deeds are done in the light. Hey, here's one more question. There's a book that's come out pretty recently. Well, there was a documentary by Alice Jones, which is called The Bush Family Connection to the JFK Assassination. And it's pretty well known that that the FBI Director Hoover issued a memorandum or a letter on either the 22nd of November or the 23rd of November in which he referenced George Bush from the CIA. Did the name George Bush ever come up?
Clyde Tolleson and Hoover were around Dallas at that time. I saw Hoover, and yeah, they were there. Well, I don't think they were there when it happened, but they were in and out. They were at that party where evidently there was a party given at one of the mansions.
Clint Murchison's house, right?
Right, Murchison's house,
yeah.
Right. And of course I wasn't there, but I heard all about it. And there's quite a bit to be told there if anybody ever comes out with it. That they find, I understand.
Where can we buy your, Mr. McKenzie, where can we send $24 or $30? Where can we buy your book and put that up on our social media website?
You send me who you are, and I want to know who you are. I'll give you a copy.
Absolutely. My name is Jeffrey Joseph Black, and I live in Chicago. And one final question, guys. If we can just find one candidate for office in each of the 50 states that would be a spark, you've got one here in Illinois. You've got, I'm running for the seat that's held by Dick Durbin, who is, very closely linked to this Barry Soetoro, the Annenberg Foundation here in Chicago, the Pritzkers. If we can just, are you guys aware of any single announced candidate for office in any of the 50 states that will talk about the Kennedy assassination in the sense that Oswald obviously was set up and didn't act alone?
No, they're not going to talk about it.
But they have to. We're going to lose our country. We're going to have martial law. We're going to have a new world order if they don't come out.
I hope, well, I don't care one way or the other, but it's not going to come out for another 50 years.
Wow.
If the records ever do come out, and I suppose they've been tampered with too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, thank you, caller, and thank you for all the kind words, and for our guest and for ourselves. And drop us a line at smiles@PsiOp-Radio.com or Mac at
MacWhite.com.
And here we are in the final segment here, Mr. McKenzie. Is there a way? Do you want to give out any public way of contacting you, or should people just come to
that address if you want? My Seattle address, the 49th Street address if you want. You can give that one out if you'd like. And
we've got that address right here. That's the 49th Street address.
Right.
That's 819 North 49th Street, mailbox number 209,
right.
Seattle, Washington, 98103 6517. If you want to contact
If anybody
Rod.
wants to write to me, they can write to me there.
Very good.
Well, Mr. McKenzie,
well, I'm sorry if I've been incoherent or anything.
Not at all. It has been a fascinating evening, and thank you so much for sharing this story.
I thank you for the opportunity to share it. The story's out there if anybody wants it. They can contact me.
I absolutely recommend that they do.
All right,
okay.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Have a wonderful night.
You too.
You too.
Good night.
All right.
Okay, we done?
Yeah, they'll meet you down there. All right. Well, this has been another live edition of PsiOp Radio. Our guest tonight has been Roderick McKenzie, and next week's guest will be Supreme Commander Jim Mosley, the editor of Saucer Smear, talking about his experiences in the history of UFO phenomena. And you can find out more about the Summer Flying Saucer Cinema Series over at anomalyarchives.org. And, of course, there'll be archives of this show at PsiOp-Radio.com later this evening.
Yes. Well, thanks for joining us on this very interesting show tonight. And we'll see you again this time next week.
Take care.
Good night.